Do you think you have what it takes to attack an ally of the United States? Well, the relationship between the United States and its allies is a critical component of international diplomacy and security. The US has long-standing alliances with countries such as NATO members Japan, South Korea, and Australia. In the event of a Russian attack on the United States ally, the US will be faced with a difficult decision. In this video, let's explore what the United States' reaction is going to be like if Russia were to attack one of its allies. The United States has a number of defense and security agreements with its allies around the world. These agreements include the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO, the United States Japan Security Treaty, the United States South Korea Mutual Defense Treaty, and the ANZUS Treaty between the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Under these agreements, the United States has pledged to come to the defense of its allies in the event of an attack. This means that if Russia were to attack a US ally, the United States would be obliged or obligated to respond. The US response to a Russian attack on US ally will depend on a number of factors, including the nature and scope of the attack, the level of US involvement in the conflict, and the political and military objectives of the United States. One possible US response would be to use military force to repel the Russian attack and protect the ally in question. The US has a range of military assets and capabilities, including aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and ground troops that it could deploy in a conflict. The US could also work with allies and international partners to impose economic and diplomatic sanctions on Russia. Sanctions could target Russian individuals and entities, freeze assets, and restrict trade and financial transactions. In addition, the United States could provide military and logistical support to its allies, such as intelligence sharing, training, and equipment. These could help to bolster the defenses of the ally and deter further aggression from Russia. International law plays an important role in the United States' response to a Russian attack on a US ally. The United Nations Charter prohibits the use of force in international relations, except in cases of self-defense or when authorized by the Security Council. Under the Charter, the US would have the right to use force in self-defense if a Russian attack on a US ally posed an immediate and grave threat to the United States. However, the US would be required to report to the Security Council on its use of force and its objectives in the conflict. The international law also recognizes the right of states to enter into defense and security agreements, such as those between the United States and its allies. These agreements provide a legal basis for the US to come to the aid and defense of its allies in the event of an attack. A Russian attack on a US ally could have far-reaching consequences for regional and global security. A conflict could escalate quickly, drawing in other countries and potentially leading to a wider war. In addition, a conflict could have significant economic and political impact. Trade and investment could be disrupted and political alliances could be strained. The US and its allies will need to be careful when weighing the risks and benefits of any response to a Russian attack. A measured and proportional response could help to deter further aggression from Russia and maintain the integrity of the United States alliance system. However, an overly aggressive or disproportionate response could lead to an unintended consequence and further instability in that particular region. How do you think the United States is going to react if Russia should attack Finland? Let's dig right in. The relationship between the United States and Russia has been fraught with tension for decades, and any aggressive move by Russia towards one of its neighbors is sure to trigger a response from the United States. In this video, we will explore the potential reaction to a hypothetical scenario: Russia attacking Finland. Now, before diving into how the United States will respond to an attack on Finland, it's important to understand the broader context of US-Russia relations. Since the end of the Cold War, the two nations have been engaged in a complex dance of cooperation and competition. While there have been moments of sparring and cooperation, such as when the United States and Russia worked together to negotiate the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. The relationship has been marked by a long history of tension and mistrust. One major source of tension is Russia's aggressive behavior towards its neighbors. The 2008 war with Georgia, annexation of Crimea in 2014, and ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine are just a few examples of Russia's attempts to assert its dominance in the region. These actions have led to significant concern among United States policymakers about Russia's intentions and how they have prompted the United States to take a more assertive posture towards Russia. So what will the United States do if Russia were to attack Finland? The short answer is that the United States would likely respond with a combination of diplomatic, economic, and military measures aimed at deterring further aggression from Russia and protecting Finland's sovereignty. The first step the United States will likely take in response to a Russian attack on Finland will be to engage in diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the crisis peacefully. This will likely involve a flurry of diplomatic activities, with the US working closely with its European allies to develop a coordinated response to the situation. The United States would likely call for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council to condemn Russia's actions and call for an immediate ceasefire. The United States would also likely seek to engage in direct talks with Russia to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. In addition to diplomatic efforts, the United States would also likely impose economic sanctions on Russia in response to an attack on Finland. These sanctions would likely be aimed at punishing Russia for its aggression and deterring further military actions. The United States has a range of economic tools at its disposal, including targeted sanctions on individuals and entities involved in the attack, broader sanctions on sectors of the Russian economy, and restrictions on trade and investment. The United States would likely work closely with its European allies to coordinate these measures and ensure maximum impact. Finally, if diplomatic and economic measures proved ineffective in deterring Russia's aggression, the United States would be prepared to take military action to protect Finland's sovereignty. This could take a variety of forms, including deploying US troops to Finland, providing military aid to Finnish military, or engaging in direct military action against Russia. However, it's important to note that the US would only take military action as a last resort, and only if there were no other viable options for resolving the crisis peacefully. The US will be acutely aware of the risks of military action, including the potential for escalation and the risk of drawing other nations into the conflict. So what does this all mean? In a nutshell, a Russian attack on Finland would be a serious and concerning development for the United States. The US would respond with a combination of diplomatic, economic, and military measures aimed at deterring further aggression and protecting Finland's sovereignty. Ultimately, the United States will be committed to finding a peaceful resolution to the crisis, but will be prepared to take decisive actions to defend its ally if necessary.